YouTube, what is good? So in this week, I'll be showing you how we've created these images with Laura, how we did the setup, how we did the lighting. So let's roll that intro and let's just get started.
Pillow talk, glitter walls, simple minds want it all. Take it off, 5 o'clock. What come the rocks? What come the rocks? Dirty socks, kitchen sink, bring it on. Drink a drink it off, take it off, take it off, take it off. Rhythm and blues, sipping on gin and juice. Explicit content, yeah. Doing what we wanna all night long. Video from red button. Kids are gone, lights are on now. Party in the box, party in the box. Night is young, we are not feeling something. Feeling us too, just like rhythm and blues.
So we've created the mirror series again. Normally the initial series was done with Rebecca, but I want to create something completely different. So this time we went with the Belgian Laura and we introduced some flowers, in this case roses, into the images to give it just that little bit more romantic vibe in the images. So first things first, make sure that everything happens in a safe manner. So that means use tripods, use light stand, use sandbags. If you're creating a 360 corner around the model, make sure that the mirrors are safe, because safety is important where you're working with glass, fragile things, so we don't want it to hit the model, so safety first. Also, another thing to keep in mind, make sure that the mirrors are clean before you start shooting, because removing reflections and smudges on the mirror will be a mess. Now, as I mentioned, clean mirrors are really important because cleaning the smudges in post-production is almost impossible, because you have the smudges to remove and you have to recreate the mirrored image in the mirror. So that's something you don't want to get started with. Also, like when you touch the mirrors, make sure you use gloves to prevent fingerprints from hitting it. Also tell the model, watch out for the mirrors, don't leave your fingerprints on the mirrors, because again, it's a mess to remove in post-production. Also, because we're using so much mirrors, every image that is reflected in a mirror has to be retouched. So make sure when you choose a model, you use a perfect model, because every time you have to remove a pimple or anything, you have to do it in all of the images in the mirrored reflections. So keep that in mind. Now, when we're talking mirrors, where do you get these kind of mirrors or all these mirrors? I went to IKEA, I just bought some different mirrors. Some are like used in a bathroom, other ones are used in bedrooms. It's just a matter of how you want to set up the mirrors. Keep in mind, once you buy them, you are stuck with the mirrors. You want to prevent having to store the mirrors, because it's a lot. Like for me, I have my own studio, so I can incorporate them into the studio environment. So I have some mirrors hanging up, I have some mirrors standing there so that the model can check herself out with clothes, how it's looking on camera and stuff. So keep in mind, when you buy mirrors, it's an investment. I can use it future wise, but if you buy some mirrors, you have to store them somewhere. Also, if you don't want to buy these mirrors, shameless plug, we are hosting a workshop on July where you can actually just come and join us in the studio, and we will explain everything in real life, how we did a setup. You can also make your own input in the creative part. And yeah, Laura will also be our model, so be sure to check out the website. I will be linking it somewhere here below. And yeah, the next step in the process is the lighting. When we are talking lighting, the light I used for these images was just one light. Because the mirrors work as reflections, so they reflect light, and we are using just one light, in this case an Elinchrom ELC 500. I always mix the battery and the studio ones up. So it's an ELC 500, not the latest one, but the generation before it, combined with an open reflector of 21 centimeters. 21 centimeters gives you enough spread of light so that it lights up the entire piece completely, and you don't have any dark spots unless you want to have some dark spots in it. Also for this set, we didn't just use the normal floor in the studio. We've put up some vinyl on the floor, which is gray, so that it gives a different vibe in the images, because otherwise it would have been wood and mirrors, but now it's like a grayish tint of vinyl combined with the mirrors. Now keep in mind, when we're using an open reflector, it is hard light. That means all imperfections or all skin issues will be emphasized on the image. If you don't want it, use a soft light, but I really wanted that punch in the images to create that contrast between the softness of the flowers combined with the hard light in the images. So an open reflector, hard light. If you want something softer, take like an Octabox from 1 meter or something. It will be softer, but it will also be more annoying to remove the reflection in the mirror, because that's another thing. You have to make sure that when you position your strobe, you don't actually see it in the mirror. Also, you as a photographer have to find a spot where you are not really visible in the mirror. In this case, we've put up a mirror against a ladder, and then I went up on the ladder. I was up high. I shot with a wide angle, a 16-35, so yeah, really wide. And because I was up high, I only had my reflection in the dark parts of the mirror, so that was pretty easy to fix in post-production. But it is something to keep in mind, because you don't want to be on the images, because removing yourself would be like a lot of work. And you also don't want to be in the line of the light, and you don't want the light to be reflected in the images, because again, you don't have to remove it once, you have to remove it like an X amount of time just to make sure that it is really gone. Now, because I am using a wide angle, I have to watch out for distortion. That means I'm shooting with a 16-35, so when I'm shooting with a 16 millimeters on a full frame, that means that when Laura is near my edges, she will get that distorted, stretched look. So when I'm taking the picture, I make sure that she is really in the center of the image, and even then it will stretch out a bit. So make sure that when you're using a wide angle, you don't have the model like really close to the edges, because the faces will get stretched, will get a little bit curved in it. So that's something to avoid. Now, when you're using a wide angle, just make sure to check the images. Also, like when legs are hitting the edges of the framing of the composition, they will be stretched. Sometimes you can use it in your advantage. Like if you have a small model, you can just put her legs, for instance, more towards the lens, so that you stretch the legs longer than what they are actually are, if that makes sense. So people always tell, don't use wide angle lenses for headshots and stuff. Why not? Because you stretch things. So that means like on 24mm, you stretches the nose, so it comes more towards the camera, which makes the face a little bit distorted. But again, you can use it in your advantage, you can use it in your disadvantage. As long as you know what you're doing, it's totally fine to break the rules. So when it comes to flowers, we chose to go with red and white, because once we had red and white, it's the most romantic, typical colors for roses. And we want to create like a romantic vibe in the images, really soft, but combined with the hard light to create that contrast in the image. Now the flowers, it's difficult to incorporate them into the images, because once you incorporate them into the images, the flowers, you have to make sure that they are looking good from each angle. Now, something we experienced a second time already, everybody has a good side and a bad side. So everybody has a nice mirror reflection and everybody has a bad mirror reflection. Don't know why that happens, but you get totally a different view from your face, and it doesn't have to do anything with the normal good and bad side of a face, because normally a jawline is like a little bit more sharper on one side than on the other side. But in this case, it's a completely different situation. So when you do mirrors, you will see that one mirror to image will be somebody completely different. It's a strange thing. I cannot explain it. Experience it on your own. But look out for that and make sure that when you're taking the pictures that you have the good mirrored image on your pictures. Now, because we're using a 360, I wanted to go for an infinity look. So that means like reflection in reflection in reflection in reflection. But that's like almost impossible without you being behind the model. So because you're shooting from a higher angle, I had a mirror leaning against myself and the ladder. So that means like when I move forward, the mirror tilted a bit. But again, like I said in the beginning, remember, safety is everything. So when you're doing this, make sure that you do it on a safe way. And I tried to like mimic an infinity part, but it didn't work at all. So you have like frontal reflection, backwards reflection, or mirrored images, left, right. But to create infinity, it just didn't work. I didn't see like mirror, like image. But that's just to tell you what I experienced. Also, another thing to keep in mind is when you're doing lights, make sure to aim them at like, not in the mirror, but like feather the light out a bit. It will make it a bit softer, but you will have less reflections in the images. So that's about it for this week. And again, try it out. Let me know if you played around with mirrors already or not. And again, if you don't know, or if you don't want to make the investment of buying the mirrors, feel free to check out the website, and then I'll see you when I see you. Ciao, ciao.